Hey Soul Fam, welcome to this video. We're going to be talking about debunking spiritual myths about the body. And I had about 6 to 8 topics I wanted to dive into, but to ensure that the length of this video is not astronomical, I'm going to only talk about 4 topics, and I'm going to tell you what those 4 topics are. The first one is fasting and the idea that we should fast in order to ascend. It's like my favorite controversial topic. The second one is the idea that our bodies and our human experience and our souls are stuck in incarnation karmic loops. The third one is the idea or ideation or projection that these bodies are innately sinful. And the fourth one for today's video is on psychedelics and this idea that we must take psychedelics, or that the spiritual community and people involved in the spiritual community are being encouraged to take psychedelics in order to connect to God. We're going to talk about that, the processes of that, should you or should you not take psychedelics, the potentials of that, what that really does, and if you really need them and when you really need them. If you're new here, my name is Grace. I'm an energy healer, coach, embodiment coach, a podcast host, lover, human being. My thing is really that I don't want to tell you what is right or wrong, or what you should or should not be thinking, or what you should or should not be doing, but just to open up conversation around things that are being talked about in the spiritual community. And I really love to just gift people, my viewers, my friends, the opportunity to look at life in a different way and to feel held in different opinions and perspectives, and to know that your opinion and perspective and experience on this earth is good, great, and it is enough, and it is perfect for you. I'm not projecting onto you. This is all just chit chat, talking about perspectives. So the first topic is fasting. I am incredibly passionate about this topic because I myself have partaken in fasting rituals and routines and the lifestyle that's involved in fasting, whether it's intermittent or a journey, a duration of fasting for a few days or however long that somebody chooses to fast. The reason I'm so passionate about this is because it is a very intense energy to enter into. I personally believe and have experienced incredibly negative effects of fasting, and I know to be true that fasting is not for everybody, but in mainstream society and spiritual communities, it's like the end all be all. You must be, you should be fasting in order to connect to God, or in order to create a clear vessel.
Best fast for weight loss. The absolute perfect time to get your body to go and find the glucose, the toxins, the hormones, and it's...
Why do you want to fast? Because your insulin levels will come down with fasting. If you don't eat, what happens to your insulin levels? They go down, because insulin is only brought on by eating. That's why I make you fast. That's why if you're a patient at CVI, you have to eat only once a day or twice a day.
Our bodies have not adapted to the frequency of eating like we do now, like every 3 hours. Right around 12 hours, we get this spike in growth hormone. Growth hormone is the anti-aging hormone. It's the main fat-burning hormone. It's the hormone involved with healing joints.
And I think that that is problematic to state for every individual, especially women. And so my speaking upon this is really just to invite us all to look into, what is fasting really? Is it necessary for us to partake? Is it really good for you at this moment in your life? And does it genuinely feel good for you to fast? Or is it out of guilt and out of this feeling that you're bad and wrong if you choose to partake in eating and nourishing and providing your body sustenance? So let's talk about how we fast in order to ascend. Some people might say this is the only way to ascend is to fast.
Breatharians are people who claim to not eat food.
However, I want to talk about fasting in general. Fasting is a very ancient practice. Nearly every culture has incorporated fasting into their culture, and livelihood in order to connect to a higher power. Ancient fasting practices first originated around 1500 BC with the Vedic, Hindu, and Jainism religions. People would fast on designated holy days or days that were considered, innately spiritual, and they would fast in order to connect even deeper with God. There has also always been this uncertainty in our human experience around eating animals and plants. And I think that many cultures and religions have always kind of felt this uncertainty around eating animals and plants, knowing that they're alive, knowing that they have this godliness within them, and then eating them. Many write-ups that I researched on mentioned that these people, these cultures would restrain their eating in order to honor life. Now, Ramadan is a massive fasting ritual, and Ramadan is the most sacred month of the year for Muslims. And during Ramadan, Muslims will not eat during the day, and they will fast during the day for the whole month. So if you're curious about Ramadan and what it is and what it's about, I encourage you to Google that. To make this video not like 10 hours long, I'm not going to really dive into what Ramadan is, but it's a very beautiful, sacred month for Muslims and for people who are practicing Muslimism. People who are practicing Muslims. So in Ramadan, it's a very spiritually disciplined month where people are obtaining and restricting themselves from food, from anything that would be considered sinful or out of alignment with this devotion, this very strong and intense devotion to God and to purity. Why is food involved in that? I think that we can dive into that after, okay? Now, here's the thing, is that if you are pregnant, if you are menstruating, if you are sick, or if you are young, you are not partaking in the fasting rituals of Ramadan. If somebody who's Muslim wants to correct me on that, please do. I'm not Muslim, but this is what the research and the journalist studies I found online have described, is that if you are pregnant, ill, menstruating, or young, or elderly, you are not partaking in the fasting portion of Ramadan. So this is interesting for women and for men as well who partake in fasting in order to lose weight. This study says that people who partake in Ramadan do not actually lose weight during the fasting month. Many of them actually gain weight afterwards because your metabolism will slow down to meet the amount of food that you are putting into your body and the amount of energy that you are providing to your body. And if you are eating very little, your metabolism is going to slow down to a screeching halt. And then when you start eating again, you're going to gain weight because your body's like, we don't want this anymore. I also want to touch on Jesus and fasting because I have friends who have attempted the 30-day fast that Jesus did. Okay? Matthew 11:19 says, fasting denies our flesh what it wants so that we can focus more clearly on strengthening our spirits. It doesn't seem that Jesus fasted often. In fact, his critics condemned him for eating and drinking. So Jesus wasn't like fasting every day all day. That was a one-time wonder that Jesus did. And let me tell you, Jesus was also the closest homie of God at the time. Jesus was very innately connected to God. God was constantly speaking to him. And that was a very intensive one-timer for Jesus, okay? I just wanted to put that out there. I think many people feel like they should fast because Jesus did that one time, but actually in the Bible, many times Jesus is condemned and criticized for eating and for drinking. However, fasting was a way that Jesus chose to declare power over his body, to not be swayed by the devil who was trying to tempt him with food and with wine and with all of the things that our human body and our ego and our psyche like to indulge in, right? So like sex, food, drugs, wine, alcohol. So in this moment, he chose spirit and he chose his dedication to that process over the devil. And that's when all the angels surrounded him and came to him and honored him, and he reached that next point in his journey. Last thing on fasting, I know that this is going to take up a big portion of this video. That's why we can only do so many topics. Stacy Sims is a incredible woman who works with athletes. She's very well known. She's very well researched, and she's done so much work on the metabolism, on the body, on female hormones, on the science behind the body. And I really respect her for that reason. And I wanted to share what she said on fasting because I want to look at all the points. Let's look at the whole piece, right? So fasting can be incredibly good to strengthen our spirit, to strengthen our connection to God, strengthen our connection with our spirit, right? That's very well known. It's an ancient practice. It's something that humans have been doing for a very long time. What I do not love is how our society in North America is now glamorizing fasting for women who are menstruating, who may be very young, who may be athletes, as I'll talk about with Stacy Sims' research. It is glamorized that we should be eating, and that if we cannot restrict ourselves from eating, that there's something wrong with us and that we should feel bad for eating. And I think that is just so ridiculous, because this body needs energy and this body needs sustenance, and the body needs to be nourished, especially with the amount of stress and anxiety and high levels of cortisol that we're all experiencing at this point in time. We need food, we need sustenance in order to be healthy, in order to maintain our periods if you're a woman, to maintain your menstrual cycle, to maintain your hormonal health, to maintain your circadian rhythm, to maintain, your circadian rhythm is mostly run by the sun and stuff, but food, nourishment, vitality, that comes from this light that enters food, that enters the body, right? It's all connected. So Stacy Sims says, fasting is useful for health, especially if you're not active or have a metabolic issue and problem with your metabolism already. So if you are exercising, if you're somebody who exercises many times a week, 3 to 4 times a week, you don't necessarily need to fast in order to see the benefits of what fasting provides for the body. But there's a breakdown of like disease and stuff in the body that occurs when you fast, which is why a lot of people are drawn to it. People who are very sick and ill and diseased may lean on fasting as a time in their life when they need to rid the body. But exercise is actually incredibly valuable for the metabolism, for detoxification, for the lymph, for hormones, for all of those things that fasting also provides. So she also says that if you're a woman who's athletic or exercising and you add fasting on top of that, it can be harmful for your health. And I want to say this because so many influencers and gurus are talking about fasting without actually honoring the female body. And this is mostly for females. I know that men have a different composition in their body and their physiology. They can push a bit harder than women can. But that's because women have our hormones to really nurture and our menstrual cycles to really nurture. The science behind this is that it comes down to kisspeptin, which is a neuropeptide that's responsible for sex hormones and the endocrine and reproductive function. And it also plays a huge role in maintaining healthy glucose levels, appetite regulation, and body composition. And it's also very much more sensitive in women than men. When it gets perturbed, our sex hormones aren't produced and released the way that they need to be in order to maintain and optimize our health. So intermittent fasting and keto both disrupt kisspeptin production. And when our brain perceives that we have a deficiency in nutrients, especially carbohydrates, we have a marked reduction in kisspeptin stimulation. This is going to cause a glucose intolerance, and it's also going to harm the endocrine system, the reproductive hormones, the sex hormones of the body. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up and mention that. And I can provide this research paper down below in case you're wanting to read it. Do your own research and check out what I just said. If that resonates with you, lean into it. If you're like, no, I'm a hardcore intermittent faster, do what you need to do for your health, okay? So main takeaway from this is that you do not need to fast in order to get closer to God. The most powerful way for you to maintain connection and closeness with God is for you to be connected to yourself and your needs and honor what you need in order to be regulated, healthy, vibrant, and vital, so that you are sure of yourself and you can connect to God in a very divine way. Don't let the mainstream culture influence you into a degraded and deficient health status, okay? You can connect to God effortlessly and easily in your own way. You don't have to go for a 30-day fast in order to connect to God. I know that this is true because I do it for myself. Topic number 2 is the idea that we are stuck in a karmic loop. Okay, so I know karma is a Hindu idea. It is this very powerful, very beautiful understanding of our incarnation cycles. What I wanted to talk about and kind of debunk here is this idea that we are stuck and that we are looping without the ability to exit, or that you have to become this absolutely ascended master in order to exit. I do not believe that that is true. I believe that it is true that karma exists, and this desire, this need for balance on the planet and in our bodies and in our creational sphere as we weave through life and choose things and have things happen to us and choose other things and have things happen to us. There's always going to need to be a balance of yin and yang, dark and light. We are co-creating with all the other beings on the planet, with ourselves, with God, with Source. And so there's a lot of things at play, right? But we get to choose. And I think that it is very debilitating and restricting to say that you are stuck in a karmic cycle or stuck in an incarnation cycle. That is purgatory, and that is a very harsh, intensive, false claim, okay? I don't believe that we are stuck in a constantly looping cycle. Some souls have been stuck in that because of their ancestors, potentially. We're all here to heal something. So your soul will reincarnate if you have lessons to continue learning. But if you reach a gnosis within yourself and within your soul and reclaim this power back from whatever is keeping you stuck in an incarnation cycle or in a purgatorial cycle, when you reclaim yourself and your soul and your being and your strength and your embodiment, you do not have to stay here if you're ready to move on from the earthly plane. Incarnation cycles are here to teach us. They're here to encourage us to grow and to expand and to, I feel like the idea of the karmic cycle is as if God is punishing us. God is not punishing us. There are forces that take away our power and our creational will, which disempowers us and puts us in a purgatorial cycle. So what you choose to believe in is what's going to create your reality. And if you choose to believe that you are stuck in an incarnation cycle, in a karmic loop that you cannot exit from, that is going to be your reality. That is going to be true for you. So when we do the inner work, when we connect to a higher power, when we have mentors and coaches who can help us understand and connect to our spiritual bodies and connect to our creational divine will and our power and our divinity, then we can exit the karmic cycle and reconnect to Source, self. And many souls come back to this planet because there's so much love here. There's so much work to do here. It's a very exciting time. I'm sure some of you have heard, many souls are excited, beaming, praying for the opportunity to come to Earth because it is a gong show. And so it's the opportunity of a lifetime. It's mastery school. Many of you have heard this. Earth is a school. It's the mystery school, right? So the incarnation cycle is not something to be afraid of, to be limited by, or to be embalmed by, or that's not the right word, to be restricted and repressed by. So this is an Indian philosophy. We can have karmic relationships, can have karmic lifetimes, we can have karmic careers, we can have karmic encounters. And this is just creation balancing itself. Everything needs to come to a homeostasis, a baseline. And that is what karma is. Karma literally means action. 3 dimensions of karma are impressions of the mind, present moment, and action, which will attract you. So it's literally your creational will. Karma is literally your opportunity. It's something that we get to play with and choose and embody through and learn from. It's not something that should repress us and make us little and small and meaningless in this beautiful experience of life on earth. Okay, so feel empowered by karma. Feel chosen by karma. Okay, I want to erase and help heal any fear we have around the incarnation cycle. It's not bad and wrong. It's not trapping us. And that is a purgatorial projection upon humans and us and beings. And some people are trapped in that energy. And it is my goal to help those people. It is so many spiritual healers' goals to help those people out of that cycle. In saying that, if you want to work with me, you can connect with me for one-on-one energy healing sessions. I am opening up a powerful container, month-long containers for people who are wanting to learn energy healing and start practicing energy healing for their own students and for their own clientele. But we have to be initiated through this process, and that's why it's a month-long container. If you are interested in entering this month-long container with me, it might be 1 month, it might be 3 months. I'm still figuring out how I want it to be. It's going to be affordable, it's going to be life-changing, it's going to be empowering, and it's for people who want to be held in a sacred container and who want to enter into that next level of embodiment and energy healing sensitivity, the capability of being able to see another and also see themselves. If you're interested in that, you can check out the links down below. I highly encourage you to check it out if that's something that excites you or makes you feel awe and wonder. This self-mastery is what allows us to go out into the world with God in order to be able to provide a real, true, life-changing service, and it's such an honor of mine, and I would love to connect with you. You can check that out on creationalcodes.com, or the links will be down below. Next little piece is the idea that the body is innately sinful. This rings true to my core, and I know for many women and many men, this has been indoctrinated into us, programmed into us, like our ancestors have experienced this pain and suffering and mind programming that the body is innately bad and wrong. I had another point that I wanted to talk to as well that I won't get into today, but if you guys enjoy this video, just let me know and I can talk about the other topics. One of the other topics I wanted to talk about is the idea that exercising is bad for the human body and that exercising pulls us away from God. And this idea of exerting and having strenuous activity and kind of, not just sitting. It's a very interesting concept. But that's another one that we won't dive into today, but it's another topic that kind of ties into this. Of course, many of you can probably already guess that a lot of this programming comes from Christian ideology and Christian culture. Christian religion has in its history spoken about the human body as sinful, dirty, bad, and wrong. So it is a programmed false belief that the body is bad and wrong, and this is a dualistic viewpoint, and I'm going to describe what that is. Dualism is defined as the division of two polarizing concepts into the same. Plato believed that the body was an imprisonment for the soul, and this inevitably, of course, made the body become some super villain, some super bad, awful thing that we were imprisoned by, right? So this dualism seeped into Christianity, and many people were put under the spell and under the impression that the body was an imprisonment of the soul, this meat suit, this binding, thing for the soul, when really, in my opinion, this body is this incredible gift, this miraculous, incredible mechanism that literally holds the soul for us to experience life on earth. We would not be experiencing life on earth if we didn't have this body. Here's a quote. It says, "For to set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on spirit is life and peace. For the mind that is set on the flesh is hostile to God, for it does not submit to God's law. Indeed, it cannot. For those who are in the flesh cannot please God." So again, indoctrination that we cannot be at peace in these bodies, that these bodies are binding us, they're purgatorial, they're confusing us, the psyche, the mind, all of this stuff it's holding us hostage. And this is just the way I see the world, as opportunity. opportunity to grow, opportunity to learn, to become, to acquire a new skill in mastering the mind, mastering the body, loving the mind, honoring and knowing that God is in all of it. God is not separate from this body. God is not separate from our mind. God is within it, and God is allowing us to have this experience. And I'm going to provide in the comments or in the description down below the article that I got this information from. This incredible blog post by this woman I will share. I got a lot of my information from her. She says that when Paul uses the word flesh here, he is not speaking of the body. Paul, when he refers to the flesh, is referring to our sinful nature that is opposed to God. So here's the quote. Now the works of the flesh are evident: sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, adultery, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissension, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and things like this. I warn you, as I warned you before, that those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. So when God talks of the flesh, now the works of the flesh are evident, God is talking about these actions that we have the opportunity to take and the choice also to not take and partake in, these actions that are sinful, these actions that pull us away from ourselves and from God, that the body can partake in. It's not the body that chooses, it's us that chooses, and the body that gets blamed. So of course it is an easy scapegoat to blame the body for this experience of all these sinful things that we could be doing with our body, but the body is operating from our will, from our choice, from our mind. So I don't understand why the body's getting blamed in the way that it is, and I think it's so funny, ridiculous, and horrible that we have been programmed to believe that the body is bad and wrong for these things, for this sinful thing, as if the body is bad and wrong for choosing to do that. The body's not choosing. The body is literally miraculous and only operating to please us and to keep us safe and in homeostasis. Here is another quote from a Christian site. It says, "Therefore we see in Romans 6:6 that the Holy Spirit calls our body the body of sin, because before we experience the dealing of the cross, before we yield our members as weapons of righteousness to God, our body is simply the body of sin. Before we reckon ourselves as dead to sin and yield our body to God, sin possesses our body. Sin is the master of the body. Our body is the stronghold of sin, the tool of sin, and the defense post of sin. Therefore, there is no other term more appropriate than this, the body of sin." So again, blaming the body as if we don't have a consciousness, as if we don't have a mind. Like, I think that these writings and posts and ideologies were brought to light before we understood that we had a soul and that we had a consciousness and that we are not just like meat suits operating. And it is not that we are just the body, but that the body is actually this beautiful mechanism that we are working with and through in order to have this human experience. That's my belief. That's my understanding of this. And I think that we need to really look at how we've been programmed to believe that the body is sinful. And I want to debunk this entirely, that the body is sinful and bad and wrong, because it is not. The body is so loving and so caring for us and wants us to be happy and healthy. A lot of people also torture the body as if that will get them closer to God. And like, I think just as a culture, as a society, especially in North America, we just don't even consider the body as this being that is protecting and holding our soul. But instead we see the body as something we can beat, torture, abuse with no cost. And now we are starting to see the cost of shortened lifespans, of cancers, of diseases when we don't partake and take care of this body. And when you become spiritual and when you start connecting to your body, you will see the effects of when you don't care for your body. The body just like does not have it. It will not allow that. For myself, I know that when I do not take care of my body or honor my body or listen to my body, My body gets pissed, I get hives, I get a stomach ache, I miss a period, all of this stuff. The body is communicating with us to keep us in health and vitality and to protect us from our own ill-doing upon self, because sometimes we just get caught up in the world, we get caught up in society. There's so many things for us to do and we can forget, oh, this beautiful thing that I'm living in, this beautiful thing holding me, this beautiful thing protecting me and providing for me and keeping me alive. My body, it needs my attention, it needs my love. But, you know, there's monks from, there's Buddhist monks and Tibetan monks and all these. I'm curious as to why there is this belief system and this action of torturing the body in order to become closer to God. And I wonder if it is connected to this idea that the body is bad and wrong and that we have to overcome the body in order to get closer to God. I think that that is something that is very masculine in energy. And it's just interesting to behold, because women are very naturally attuned to spirit and consciousness. And men can be too, but I've personally never seen a woman walking on hot coals or burning in a fire in order to get closer to God. It's a very kind of masculine energy that I can honor and respect, you know, this bravery that comes with dying before God or connecting to God through that pain. But I wonder if it is connected to this idea that the bodies are sinful and that the bodies are bad and wrong. And so that's an entirely different conversation. But yeah, just a little side note, curiosity there. Last point before we finish up this video. Thank you for sticking through with me. I know this video is quite long, but I hope that it provides you lots of thinking and opportunities for growth to witness and behold and become anew through. Last topic is psychedelics are the only way to connect to God, or psychedelics are this magical portal of connection to God. And yes, totally they are. Psychedelics have the capability of opening our consciousness and our psyches up to higher levels and higher dimensions and higher possibilities of how we can see life on earth and how everything is breathing and alive, and it is powerful and it is breathtaking. And how I'm debunking this is I'm kind of calling out spiritual gurus or people who do this too much or any teacher that recommends a high dosage of psychedelic for someone who is either, you know, chronically stressed, if they are experiencing adrenal fatigue, or are ungrounded in general. I think that this needs to be discussed. Some people do not do well on psychedelics. Some people do not do well with elevating because they're already ungrounded. For myself, my experience with psychedelics has been a love and hate relationship, because I am just so ethereal in mind and I am just so hardly here already that when I take psychedelics, it is a very scary experience for me because it's not what I need, which is more grounding. And it depends on which psychedelic you're taking, right? So there's many psychedelics to take. There's mushrooms, acid, the very, very popular one right now. What's it called? Ayahuasca, Mama Aya. There's also ketamine, LSD. There's so many different psychedelics that are available for people who want to take them, right? And these are very powerful tools that can allow us to transcend any, you know, blockages that we're having in our life, or if we need messages, or if we need experiences that transcend our current reality. They are life-changing. I just want to debunk the idea that these are the only way for us to transcend our human body and to transcend, you know, any limitation that we may feel around the 3D, that, you know, we're blocked or we're limited. You have the potential and also this internal pharmacy that can help you reach those states without taking these very intense substances. right? So we can connect to God through our own attention and intention and decision. And if you want to plan a sacred ceremony for yourself, that can be just as powerful as taking a trip. And we need to become mindful of this, because many people do these trips like all the time, and they become reliant upon it as if this is the only way that you can connect to God, as if you take LSD or if you take ayahuasca. But that's just not true. Like, these are our friends. These are beautiful, powerful portal ways that can help us, experience a portal, a tear in the matrix. And I think that some people abuse them, and some people don't also understand the intensity that follows these trips. Like, some people are doing these ceremonies downtown in a very bustling city, and the impact of that is that your spirit, your aura becomes so open that you could have so many things entering your field with no awareness, no ability to protect yourself, because you're an open book, right? Like, there is so much initiation that can come from these medicines, but there also needs to be so much initiation before you partake in them and with them, is my personal belief. And I think that they're magical tools, psychedelics. I think that they are life-changing and life-altering and just so incredibly impactful, but we need to be smart about them, about using them, and we need to be respectful and very honoring. Like, people use nicotine now all the time, every day, numerous times a day, hape, mushrooms, marijuana, and these things were actually tools that would have been used very infrequently in order to gain connection with God. And now it's used as like escapism and used as like this way to transcend our current reality. And I just wanted to talk about it. I just wanted to debunk that is the only way you can connect to God, because truly it is not. You can connect to God through meditation, through nature walks, through hikes, through breathing, through connection with self, through initiation that you choose, through your spoken word, through your prayer, through your energy healing, through your devotion to your practices, through your devotion to your routine, through asking for more and taking and honoring and choosing to move through that moreness. I think that can be more transcendental than choosing to take a psychedelic and needing to take that psychedelic every other month in order to feel connected to God. Connection to God is a choice, and it is an action, and it is a practice. It's a routine, a devotion. And so I think they're powerful. I think they're amazing. I think that they are transcendent, and I think that you need to be aware if you should be taking them or not, if they're right for you or if they're not right for you. And they don't need to be right for you. Like, there's so much hype around doing ayahuasca, and it's like this initiation. But bro, like, if your nervous system can't hold space for that, that could be very damaging for you. If your nervous system can't hold space for that intensity and also that toxicity that you're putting into your body, that now you have to purge that out as well, it's a lot. Like, it's an initiation, right? So I just wanted to talk about that. I think that it's a really important conversation to have when it's being seen with rose-tinted glasses, like, oh, just do it, no biggie. Like, this, it's an intense experience. It's something that we need to honor and hold within high honor and gratitude for the herb. So those were my 4 big things I wanted to talk about. Some of the other ones I wanted to talk about that, of course, are like big topics in the spiritual community, as well as like veganism, connecting to God on your own, like needing a priest or a shaman or anything like that to connect to God, which I kind of just talked about, and I talk about that all the time in general as well. Exercise is bad for the human body and pulls us away from God. We kind of talked about that a little bit, but there's so many of these things that we can talk about, guys. And if you have any more that you're kind of like, this is upsetting me, this is annoying me, why is this such a big spiritual fad, you can put in the comments below, and I would love to debunk it or talk about it or talk about what it is and what it isn't and how we can liberate ourselves from these boxes that might be binding us. And I think the more that we have open conversations about this, like, I just don't believe that there should be any guilt on your spiritual journey. Like, enough with all of these, like, fads and bad and wrongs and clicks and all of this stuff. Like, no clickiness. Let's just be real. and talk about this and love each other and honor each other and honor each other as individuals. Your journey is so unique and so individual that I stated in the beginning of this video that if this does not feel right for you, leave it. I am not an all-knowing guru. I'm not going to claim to be that. I'm going to claim to be somebody that has learned a lot and that can provide a lot of information and that can potentially open some doors of thinking for you and perceptions and different ways of looking at life. And so that's all I want to provide. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please comment down below. I would love to hear from you. If you want to work with me one-on-one, if you're interested in joining the program and container, to learn how to facilitate, to learn energy healing on a deeper level, to connect and to kind of go through an initiation process of your next embodiment, you can leave a comment down below or check out my website. I'm hoping to have it up by the time this video is live. And it was such an honor to connect with you guys today. I will see you next time.